sounding like this to now sounding like this.
Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, I just keep me satisfied.
Also not being able to replicate what's on the record, running into premature vocal issues, but most importantly, not being prepared for the rigors and demands of the music industry and ready to leave after the release of their first single.
I'm trying to get that dough. Every day is another struggle. This is my life. So what if my parents say no? Just sit back.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are reacting to Why the New Girls Can't Sing, a video essay. Listen. There's a lot of R&B and there's a lot of pop music that I like, but I'm not gonna sit here in front and act like there are some girls that are skating by with their music as far as not being able to vocally give what needs to be gave on these tracks. I'm not gonna say no names, but there are a select few girls who the music is cute, it gets by, but are they vocally giving me like what I need? No. It's like the same thing like saying a rapper has a catchy song and it might, do well in the charts and it might, get this many streams, but are you giving bars though? Like it's the same correlation. Are you giving bars though, or is it just catchy and people like it? They like the sound of it. They like the production of the song. So it's kind of fits into that little scope. But let me stop talking. Let's get into the video. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, okay? And let's see. I don't know.
This video was made possible through the help of generous donations from viewers like you. Thank you. 20-something years ago, a 20-year-old sang like this.
Mm. 20?
Today, a 20-something-year-old sings like this.
Ever happened to me? Ever happened to me? Ever happened to me? Why did I pull it, trigger, pull it, trigger, pull it, trigger, boom?
I am not saying that the new girls don't sound good, nor am I saying that they don't make great music. But what I am saying is that there has been a change in the quality and standard of singing across all. A 20-year-old sounding like this to now sounding like this.
Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, I just keep me satisfied.
Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. Practice. It takes 10,000 hours to be considered an expert or a master at a task. The old school girls achieved their 10,000 hours before they even thought about touching a major stage. And they would get those hours one or two ways: school and church. There was a time when art was deeply integrated in American culture and everyday life. In 1935, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt enacted the Works in Progress Act and in turn created the Federal Music Act. What this act did was put many artists to work to help rebuild the economy after the Great Depression. So in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, you could go to the community center in your neighborhood and see an opera put on for free, or a symphony, or an art installation. And even better, under the Works in Progress Act, music education was made free and accessible to the public. So just imagine going into your local community center and getting a free voice or piano lesson from a professional.
1, 2.
And because of the Federal Music Act, music also became a part of the public school learning curricula. So, students in public school systems were learning how to sing, read, write, and compose music from a trained music professional.
Every morning, every Monday through Friday, every morning there was a class from 9 o'clock to 10:30. So that meant that I had for 4 years, a voice lesson 5 days a week, plus my voice lesson on Saturday, 6 days a week. Who ever heard of that? That doesn't happen these days.
As a part of her school curriculum, Grace
Got a
Bumby got
point.
a 1.5 hour voice lesson every day. So let's do some math. 1.5 hours a day times 5 days a week, that's 7.5 hours. There are 4 weeks in a year, that's 30 hours a month. A school year lasts approximately 9 months, that's 270 hours a school year. She did this for 4 years, so that is 1,080 hours of practice.
Wow.
Not to mention, Grace Bumbry and singers like Phyllis Hyman were also a part of their school choirs and choruses. Many years ago, school choir and chorus was just as competitive and actively funded like school sports. These choirs and choruses would compete around the countries against each other for trophies and prizes. The market for this was so strong that many of these choirs and choruses would also cut records. And that's where you'll find singers such as Martha Wash making their earliest recordings.
Mm.
But to do school choir and chorus also requires more practice. So, say for instance, you're practicing with your choir 2 hours a day, 4 days a week. That's an additional 8 hours of practice a week, which means that's 32 hours a month, 288 hours for a school year, and an extra 1,440 hours that you've gotten over your school career. So you have your 1,080 hours from music class, your 1,152 hours from high school chorus class. So by the time you get your diploma, you have gotten over 2,000 hours of training and development for free. And this doesn't even take into account the students who are practicing at home. The other way singers would acquire their hours would be through church. A traditional church music training is on par with a music education. And here's how. When Europeans brought Africans over through slavery, they introduced them to Christianity and the music of the European church, which by nature is classical. So if you listen to traditional gospel music, at its root, you will see and hear that the music and techniques of gospel and classical music are very similar.
And just the time I need him, he's always near.
But like, imagine you singing from a little kid in the church. And I'm not even talking about what you're getting from school. Just imagine you singing from a little kid in the church all the way up into a young adult. Then add on the fucking however many years you decide to do it in school. Because I don't know back then, but obviously they have, like me, like when I was in high school, I took chorus. And we had a few performances at the school, and we did the chorus was an elective. Like that was an elective of mine. That was something that I chose, that I picked to do for my 11th and senior year. It might have just been my senior year. But I mean, add both of them, added together, church and school. So I don't know if now they're doing it to where you also get chorus and choir in your middle school years and elementary school years, because I also did chorus in my middle school years as well as my my high school years. So I wonder how they're doing it now, or if it's different.
In these churches, there was someone called a minister or a director of music. An example of this would be Sissy Houston or Maddie Moss Clark. This person was usually from a music education background and was in charge of picking all the music that would be sang in the church. In addition to this, they would work with choir members on vocal technique and also piano and music theory to get the Sunday music right.
But oh, when I read, oh, when I read Lord, when I read that blessed.
So you have your singers like Aretha Franklin and the Clark sisters, who acquired thousands of hours of musical training because they were in church literally from birth. So you have your schoolgirls and your church girls. And then you have your singers such as Leona Mitchell and Dionne Warwick, who sang in both school and church. That's hours and hours of training. But let's also remember the context of the times. There was no social media, so these girls had very little distractions. But also, this is the early to mid 20th century we're talking about. So, no matter a family's socioeconomic status, many of them kept a musical instrument in the house because it was through music that many families bonded. Just think about how many singing families were cutting records together in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Or remember when kids played outside and would make up songs to hopscotch and jump rope to. The girls were practicing and putting in hours when they didn't even know it. So what happened? Well, it's pretty simple. The girls just aren't getting their hours anymore. In the late 70s and early 80s, under President Ronald Reagan, the government began defunding art education in public school systems. And that is why programs such as the Save the Music campaigns were created. And over the past 2 to 3 decades, younger generations of people have been steadily stepping away from the church. So the two places that bred musicians the most have now been compromised greatly. But another important thing to remember is that once upon a time, there were a lot more careers available in music. A typical career path for a singer would be they start in a group or a band, sing background, then graduate to a solo career. Those years of band and background singing were more and more hours of training. And up until around the 1990s or so, you could make a good, honest, sustainable living in music without being a superstar.
People they always think it's sudden, don't they? But it's not sudden. Overnight success. No, of course it's not. Working in nightclubs in Florida for a few years, and then to New York and getting into jingles by accident. A lot of it is by accident.
There is a market for people who sing and wrote jingles for big products and brands.
Your voice is in a lot of commercials now. Tell them some of them they would recognize. Y'all know the Reebok spot. You got to play like you don't even money. Play like you never get hurt. You got to
You could be a demo singer, singing demos for big name artists.
Like I used to demo a lot of records, and there was a club beat that came on, and two guys were like, "Oh, here's some lyrics." You know, at the time I was getting paid $150 as a demo, and you know, he said to me, "Oh, if you put this demo down and I don't have a melody, but if you make these lyrics work, I'll give you $300." So I was like, "300? Okay, focus." Right.
And one of the best things you could do was have your own club act. Having your own club act at a local supper or dining club was a very respectable career.
But sooner or later, there has got to come a time when you've got to do right, y'all. Oh, I want to do.
It was also how many singers would get discovered and get their first record deals. Before releasing her debut album, Whitney Houston covered this entire gamut. She sang jingles.
Tonight is unmistakably stick and dale.
She sang demos. She did background work. And she did a club act before she released her first record. That is hours and hours of private training and development that the current crop of singers no longer are able to get because these careers are no longer really available.
But that's the thing, though. There is no artist development. And I think that people just think that artist development is like helping them like with interviews and being like prepped for questions. Like I feel like artist development is like, when you think about artist development, that's in its entire totality. It's not just getting prepped for interviews so you know the right questions to answer and what to say. It's everything that involves the artist. Like he said, the hours and hours of putting in at the studio and doing background vocals and performing at nightclubs and singing in church and singing in school. Like that is a part of artist development. And obviously, if you're already an artist but you haven't debuted yet, or you haven't like put out a single yet, of course, like you're not in church or really in school like that. But again, you can still do those things to where you're doing background vocals, you're singing jingles, you're singing on commercials, and you're doing things, you're doing smaller things like that before you break into, you know, that debut spot.
But even after signing a record deal, a singer was still not put on stage immediately. There was a thing called artist development. So at labels such as Motown and Columbia Records, artists were enrolled in singing, dancing, and acting lessons to make sure they were well-rounded performers before it was time for them to be presented to the public.
Maurice King was our musical director at the time. He said, "I got two things that'll help you, okay? First of all, you got to be aware of the cold kick. That's why you see me with this on. Right. Even though it's hot outside, you know, you got to keep your vocal cords warm." Right. And he told me for the first time, your top note is a B flat in your natural voice. Right. If you go above that too many times, you won't have voice. Right. And that's what I do now. I stay in my key.
Artist development is no longer present in today's music industry. So you have singers who are being taken straight from Instagram and put on the Grammy stage. They are being expected to do the same work without the same preparation. And the result is what we hear today. The homogenization of sounds in mainstream music, girls not being able to replicate what's on the record, running into premature vocal issues, but most importantly, not being prepared for the rigors and demands of the music industry and ready to leave after the release of their first single. I am not saying that one generation of singers and musicians is better than the other, but what I am saying is that today's singers and musicians are a direct reflection of how life and politics impact art. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. Until
That was a good video. That was a really good video. He's right. He's definitely right. And they were better. Talk about it. The singers from way back in the gap are better than the singers of today. Because again, they had that artist development and the preparation. I feel like they actually gave a damn about their craft back then and what they actually sounded like on the track, rather than saying, oh, this song is catchy. Like, they actually cared about what they sounded like vocally. But I also think it has to do with the consumers. Like, consumer-based shit is everything. If you know you have a fan base that's just going to eat up whatever you put out, even though it's not vocally up there and it sounds catchy because everybody's attention span is like stuck on dumb, they're going to eat it right up. Back then, you had to be talented. You could not just get on the mic and just give subpar bars, give subpar vocals on a track. That was not happening back then. Today is a little different because the consumer, they don't care as much. As long as the song got a nice beat to it, a little bit of trap in the background, it's catchy, it can be played on pop radio, they don't care, which is unfortunate. But that's just how shit works. Anyway, I'm glad you stayed to the end of the video. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Drop down recommendations for me if you want me to react to anything else that is similar to what I reacted to today. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Done it all, been through it all. I walked over the motherfucking fire with sandals. Gonna burn your feet eventually.